My name is Anya, and for 32 years, I've carried the weight of being the other daughter. The one who wasn't shimmering gold. The one who never quite measured up. Now, everything has imploded and I'm left sifting through the ashes, trying to find a reason to keep breathing. It all started, no, it always was, with my sister Clara. She's 29, with a smile that could melt glaciers and a talent for getting exactly what she wants. And God, did my parents, Thomas and Elena, give it to her. Growing up in that house felt like living in a perpetual shadow. It wasn't some cutesy sibling rivalry. It was a constant, crushing reminder that I was less. Clara could set the kitchen on fire and somehow I'd be the one scrubbing soot off the ceiling. A's on our report cards? Clara got a pony, I got a good, Anya. Keep it up. The subtle digs, the constant comparisons, it was a slow poison, seeping into my soul. Clara just needs more attention, Anya, Mom would say, her voice laced with that sickeningly sweet tone she reserved for her precious little angel. You're the older one. You should understand. Understand what? That my feelings didn't matter? That I was supposed to be happy living in Clara's radiant glow? Dad was no better. Silent, stoic, but his eyes always found Clara first. He'd beam at her, a genuine smile that rarely graced my presence. He'd just nod at me with a, "That's good, Anya. College applications?" When I got into state on a scholarship, it was a shrug. "That's nice, Anya." When Clara decided community college wasn't for her, balloons, a new car, a goddamn parade, I swear, I could hear the trumpets blaring, even though the music was all in my head. I escaped as soon as I could, working myself raw to pay for textbooks and rent. "Clara?" She flitted from one passion project to another, each one funded by Mom and Dad's dwindling savings. A cupcake shop that burned out after 3 months, a boho chic jewelry line that never saw the light of day, and they applauded her for her entrepreneurial spirit. Even though I created space between us, those damn holiday dinners always pulled me back into the suffocating atmosphere where I was perpetually being measured and found wanting. Still stuck in that mid-level position, huh, Anya? Mom would coo, all fake sympathy and hidden barbs. Well, Clara's thinking about starting another business. She's just so driven to bankrupt them, more like it. I tried to keep a relationship with Clara. She was my sister, after all. But it was always a game to her, a competition she had to win. A new promotion for me meant she suddenly had a huge opportunity brewing. A blossoming relationship meant she'd be conveniently madly in love with some guy I'd never met and never would. Then I met Liam, and for a while the gold seemed to tarnish. Liam! Just saying his name aches now, a dull throb in my chest where my heart used to be. He was everything I wasn't used to. Brilliant, kind, funny, with eyes that saw past the other daughter and straight into me. He was a friend of one of Clara's fleeting boyfriends, a connection I almost didn't pursue, but something about him drew me in, a magnetic pull I couldn't resist. Dating Liam felt like breathing for the first time. He listened to me, celebrated my achievements, and actually seemed to care about my stupid stories from childhood. He valued me. My parents, of course, hated him. "He's too good for you, Anya," Mom would say, her voice dripping with that familiar venom. "What does he even see in you?" Clara, on the other hand, became suddenly intensely interested. She was always asking about him, wanting details about his job, his family, his hobbies. At the time, I was just relieved she was finally showing some interest in my life, that she was finally seeing me. Naive, stupid me. Liam and I moved in together after a year. It was bliss. We had our routines, our inside jokes, our shared dreams. We talked about the future, about buying a house, maybe even kids. For the first time, I allowed myself to believe that I could have it all. A loving partner, a successful career, a family of my own. Then, on our 4th anniversary, I asked him. Simple dinner at home, a heartfelt speech about how he'd changed my life. And he said yes. God, the joy I felt. I was soaring. We decided on a long engagement, wanting to enjoy the process, to save for a wedding and a down payment on a house. We weren't in a rush. We had all the time in the world. Or so I thought. The engagement party was where the cracks started to show. My parents' reactions were predictable. Mom's fake smile, Dad's grunt, the ever-present tension that would always find its way in my life. Clara's reaction, though, was different. She congratulated us, but there was something unsettling in her eyes, a glint of something predatory. I chalked it up to my own insecurities, my lifelong fear of being overshadowed. The year that followed was a blur of wedding planning and work stress. Liam and I were both burning the candle at both ends, trying to save every penny. We didn't see each other as much, but I figured it was just a phase. Every relationship has its rough patches, right? Looking back, the signs were there. Liam became distant, always on his phone, a secret smile playing on his lips. He started going out more with the guys, coming home late, smelling of cheap wine and something vaguely floral. I trusted him implicitly. I never suspected a thing. 4 months ago, Clara started acting off, moody, irritable, nauseous all the time. I didn't think much of it. Women get like that. It never even registered with me, never crossed my mind. Then, one night, Liam sat me down, his eyes red and swollen. He grabbed both my hands and held them so tight I could feel the bones in his hand grinding. "Anya, I have to tell you something." He paused, his voice cracking. "Something terrible." The words hit me like a physical blow. "Clara's pregnant. And it's mine." My world dissolved. Everything I thought I knew, everything I had built my life on, crumbled into dust. I couldn't breathe. I couldn't think. All I could feel was an all-consuming, agonizing sense of betrayal. Liam tried to explain, the words tumbling out in a frantic rush. It started at our engagement party. Clara had approached him, told him he was making a mistake, that I wasn't good enough for him. She played on his insecurities, his doubts, whispering poison in his ear. One thing led to another, and it became a thing. Months of lies, deceit, sneaking around behind my back. I threw him out that night. I couldn't bear to look at him, to be in the same room with a man who had so completely shattered my trust. He begged for forgiveness, swore it was a mistake, that he loved me, but all I could hear was the echo of his lies, the image of him with her. After he left, I went for Clara. I don't remember what I said, but my God, she was infuriating. She started talking about my flaws, and all the ways I wasn't a good girlfriend. I couldn't believe it. I got in my car and drove to her apartment, determined to inflict some pain, to make her feel the way I felt. I'm not sure what I was going to do, but when I got there, Mom and Dad were already there. Clara had called them first, spun a tale of seduction and regret, painting herself as the victim, and they believed her. They always did. Mom launched into a lecture about forgiveness and family, while Dad just stood there, arms crossed, radiating disappointment. Disappointment in me, not in their precious Clara. I tried to explain what really happened, but they wouldn't listen. They told me I needed to forgive Clara, to support her through her pregnancy. "Family comes first, Anya," Mom said, her voice dripping with that sickly sweet condescension. Something snapped. Years of pent-up resentment, of being the other daughter, of being constantly judged and found wanting, exploded. I unleashed on them, told them exactly how I felt about their twisted sense of loyalty, about how they'd always favored Clara, about how they'd never seen me, never truly loved me. I told Clara she was dead to me, that she was no longer my sister. I told my parents they could have the daughter they'd always wanted, because they sure as hell didn't have me. I stormed out, ignoring their cries, their pleas. I drove for hours, aimlessly, just wanting to escape, to get away from the suffocating weight of their expectations. When I finally got home, my phone was a graveyard of missed calls and messages. Liam begging for another chance. Clara alternating between apologies and accusations, and Mom and Dad demanding I grow up and make amends. I ignored them all. I shut myself in my apartment, replaying every detail of my relationship with Liam, every interaction with Clara, trying to figure out where I went wrong, trying to pick up the shattered pieces of myself. It's been 3 months since that night, and the world still feels fractured. I moved to a new apartment, changed my phone number, and started therapy, trying to piece myself back together. But they won't let me go. Mom started showing up at my office, ambushing me with tearful pleas about ripping the family apart. Dad left angry voicemails, telling me to woman up and forgive Clara. Clara herself has tried to approach me several times, her eyes wide with an emotion I can't quite decipher. They've even sent in the flying monkeys, distant relatives, old family friends, all reciting the same script about forgiveness and family. Aunts, uncles, cousins I haven't spoken to in years are suddenly calling, urging me to let bygones be bygones, as if Clara and Liam made a little mistake, not a life-altering betrayal. Liam sent me a letter yesterday. He and Clara are nesting, preparing for the baby. My parents are ecstatic about becoming grandparents, conveniently forgetting the circumstances, the lies, the pain they caused. The letter was full of apologies and explanations about how he and Clara discovered true love through this difficult situation. He even had the audacity to suggest that we could all be friends someday, for the sake of the child. I'm at my wit's end. Part of me wants to cut ties completely, to disappear and start over somewhere new. Change my name, dye my hair, become someone else. But another part of me is filled with a burning rage, a desire to fight, to make them see the extent of their twisted behavior. The betrayal has seeped into every aspect of my life. I can't sleep, can't eat, can't even concentrate at work. I've lost friends over this, people who think I should take the high road and reconcile with my family, as if I'm the one who's wrong for refusing to play happy families with the people who have ripped my heart out. The thought of Liam and Clara raising a child together, a child that should have been mine, is like a constant knife in my gut. I know, logically, that the child is innocent, that it's not the baby's fault, that its parents are lying, cheating scum, but I can't bring myself to feel anything but resentment. My parents have even started talking about how I should be involved in the baby's life, how I'll be an amazing aunt. The idea makes me physically ill. How can I look at that child and not see the ultimate symbol of Clara's betrayal? I don't know what to do. I'm drowning in a sea of lies, manipulation, and gaslighting, and the weight of it all is crushing me. The outpouring of support from strangers online was a shock. I was sitting alone in my apartment, nursing a lukewarm cup of coffee, when I decided to post to Reddit. I didn't expect to get a response. Just wanted to yell into the void and hoped that someone, anyone, would hear me. The comments exploded. I was flooded with advice, encouragement, and shared experiences from people who had gone through similar betrayals. It was both heartbreaking and comforting to know I wasn't alone in this. People urged me to get a restraining order, to cut off contact with my family, to prioritize my own well-being. I took their advice. I consulted with a lawyer, a no-nonsense woman named Sarah who didn't sugarcoat anything. She listened to my story, her expression hardening with each new detail. "We can get you a restraining order," she said, her voice firm. "And we can explore other options as well." Getting the restraining order turned out to be a battle. My parents arrived at the courthouse with their own lawyer, some slick-talking shark who tried to paint me as unstable, as the one who was ripping the family apart. My parents went all out trying to stop me from protecting myself. Mom theatrically broke down on the stand, and Dad glared at me like I had betrayed him. I started to break down as well as it was all so exhausting, and a constant reminder of what my life had become. The lawyer Sarah snapped me back into reality. But the judge saw through their act. She granted the restraining order against Clara and my parents. As we were leaving the courthouse, Clara's face was as red as the devil and shouted that this wasn't over and I couldn't hide behind a piece of paper forever. I was terrified. I had the law on my side, but I was terrified it wouldn't be enough. The job situation was a disaster waiting to happen. I was on edge, constantly looking over my shoulder, waiting for the next ambush. One afternoon, I was in a meeting with a potential client when my assistant buzzed me. "Anya, your mother is in the lobby. She's causing a scene." My blood ran cold. I excused myself from the meeting and rushed to the lobby, where I found my mother surrounded by a group of my coworkers. She was holding a photo album, showing them baby pictures of Clara and me, gushing about how close we used to be. "Anya, darling," she exclaimed when she saw me, rushing towards me with outstretched arms. "We need to talk about the baby shower. We've planned everything. Mom, you need to leave," I said, my voice shaking. "I'm calling security. Don't be ridiculous, Anya. We're family. You forfeited that right a long time ago," I spat. Security escorted her out, leaving behind a trail of stunned coworkers and shattered trust. I spent the next hour trying to smooth things over with my boss, explaining the situation, apologizing for the disruption. He was understanding, but I could see the concern in his eyes. I knew my days at the company were numbered. The breaking point came on a Saturday afternoon. I was at the gym, trying to punch away the anger and frustration, when I heard a voice behind me. "Having fun, Anya?" I turned around and there she was, Clara, smirking at me. "What do you want?" I demanded. "Just wanted to see how you're doing," she said, her voice dripping with sarcasm. "Coping well with the fact that Liam and I are building a life together?" "You're violating a restraining order," I said, my voice trembling with rage. "Leave now, or I'm calling the police." Clara laughed. "Go ahead. I'll tell them you threatened me and Liam. Who do you think they'll believe?" Something snapped. I lunged at her, my fist connecting with her jaw. She stumbled backward, then charged at me, her nails clawing at my face. We wrestled on the floor, trading blows like animals. Years of resentment, of suppressed anger, of being the good sister, exploded in a violent outburst. The gym staff pulled us apart, both of us bruised, bleeding, and screaming obscenities. The gym manager threatened to call the police, which finally snapped me out of my rage. I grabbed my bag and fled, adrenaline coursing through my veins. As I was driving home, my phone rang. It was Liam. "How could you do this, Anya?" he screamed. "You broke Clara's nose. She might need surgery." I burst out laughing, the absurdity of it all overwhelming me. "Oh, I'm sorry," I said, my voice dripping with sarcasm. "Did I upset your little girlfriend? The one you were sleeping with behind my back?" He started sobbing, rambling about how stressed he was, how the baby could feel his pain. "You're so selfish, Anya," he wailed. I hung up and blocked his number. The aftermath of the fight was brutal. News of the gym brawl spread like wildfire, fueled by social media and gossip. My phone blew up with texts from friends and family, some offering support, others condemning my violence. I got a call from Sam's parents, expressing their disgust with their son's behavior and offering me their sympathy. It was a small comfort, but I'll take what I can get. The legal ramifications were a nightmare. Clara filed assault charges against me, claiming I attacked her unprovoked. My lawyer assured me that we could fight it, but it would be an uphill battle given that I threw the first punch. I learned through my cousin, Amy, that my parents were telling everyone I was having a mental breakdown, that I couldn't cope with Liam and Clara's happiness. They were painting me as the villain, as the crazy ex-girlfriend who couldn't let go. Things at work went from bad to worse. My manager called me into his office and told me that it would be best if I took a leave of absence, a paid sabbatical, until things calmed down. I knew I was being pushed out, that I was becoming a liability. As I was packing up my office, I overheard two of my coworkers gossiping about the situation. "Can you believe her sister got pregnant by her fiancé?" one whispered. I slammed my office door louder than necessary, startling them. It felt good. The darkness closed in. I was isolated, unemployed, facing legal charges, and surrounded by enemies. I started having panic attacks, waking up in the middle of the night, gasping for air. Sometimes, I would find myself driving aimlessly, ending up parked outside the apartment I used to share with Liam. I'd sit there for hours, replaying memories in my head, wondering where I went wrong. In the midst of this chaos, I got a message from Liam's younger brother, Evan. He apologized for his brother's actions and offered his support. At first, I was wary, wondering if it was a trap, but after talking to him, I realized he was genuinely disgusted by Sam's behavior. Evan became my lifeline, keeping me informed about what was going on in Liam and Clara's world. They were living together, playing house, pretending that they hadn't destroyed multiple lives to be together. Evan told me that Liam was playing the victim, crying to anyone who would listen about how he never meant to hurt anyone, and how he and Clara were soulmates who found each other against all odds. It made me sick, but I appreciated Evan's honesty. Knowledge is power, even when it's knowledge you wish you didn't have. The social media circus was relentless. Someone had posted about the gym fight on a local Facebook group, sparking a firestorm of comments and opinions. I made the mistake of reading some of them one night after having too many beers. I ended up throwing my phone across the room, shattering the screen. I decided to delete my social media accounts. I couldn't handle the negativity. I knew I had to get out. I couldn't stay in this city, surrounded by these people, haunted by these memories. I started looking for internal transfers within my company and found a promising opportunity in Seattle. I'd never been to Seattle, never thought I'd want to live there. But at this point, I would have moved to the moon to escape this nightmare. The idea of a fresh start, of a new life where no one knew my story, was intoxicating. My parents had been uncharacteristically silent since the restraining order was issued. I knew it wouldn't last. I was just waiting for the other shoe to drop, for them to find a new way to manipulate me. Liam, meanwhile, was busy spreading the word about Clara's pregnancy, posting ultrasound photos and belly shots on social media, boasting about how blessed they were to be starting a family. Each new post was like a fresh wound, reopening the pain. Then, one day, Liam took it too far. I received the letter. The picture, I snapped, and I am done playing this game. It's been a week since I decided to leave, and the whirlwind of activity is almost surreal. I accepted the transfer, called my boss, told her I needed the transfer. I told her I would be there in 2 weeks. 2 weeks to pack my life into boxes and say goodbye to everything. My parents, of course, were furious. They showed up at my apartment, again violating the restraining order, begging me to reconsider. "You're abandoning your family," Mom sobbed. "You're being selfish and immature," Dad yelled. I didn't engage. I just called the police and had them escorted off the property. Clara responded differently. She didn't contact me directly, but she posted a lengthy message on social media about how some people can't handle seeing others happy, and how she and Liam were rising above the hate to focus on their new family. I saw all the support she was receiving from our hometown, and all I felt was emptiness. Sam, ever the master manipulator, took it to a new level. After our explosive phone conversation, he contacted Evan, who told me Sam had broken down, weeping about how he realized what he and Clara had done was terrible. Evan was disgusted. So was I. Amy came to the rescue, offering to help me pack. It was a small gesture, but it meant the world to me. She told me that my aunt, Mom's sister, had finally confronted my parents about their favoritism, accusing them of pushing me away. I don't know if I'll ever truly heal from this, but I do know that I need to move forward, to build a life that's free from their toxic influence. My lawyer assured me that my move wouldn't affect the legal case, that we're still pursuing charges against Clara for violating the restraining order, and that I wasn't a threat to her anymore, that it would help get the charges dropped against me. And now, here I am on the eve of my departure. Boxes stacked in the living room, a one-way ticket to Seattle in my pocket. I'm nervous, excited, and terrified. The move isn't a magical cure, but it's a chance to start over, to define myself on my own terms. I don't know what the future holds, but I'm determined to find my happiness, to build a life filled with genuine connection, with trust, with love that isn't tainted by betrayal. I am Anya, and this is not the end of my story. It's the beginning of a new chapter. The old one is over now, and I am done playing games. And now that it is over, it is time for me to heal. The Pacific Northwest greeted me with a gray sky and a steady drizzle, exactly as advertised. Stepping off the plane at SeaTac, I felt a strange mix of liberation and dread. No one here knew my name, knew my story. I could be anyone I wanted to be. But the weight of the past was still there, a dull ache in my chest. My new apartment was small but clean, a studio in a gentrifying neighborhood with exposed brick walls and a view of the Space Needle through the perpetually misty windows. I spent the first few days unpacking, arranging my meager belongings, trying to make the place feel like home. But every object, every photograph was a reminder of the life I had left behind. The silence was deafening. No phone calls from Mom, no accusatory texts from Clara, no pleading emails from Liam. Just the constant hum of the refrigerator and the rhythmic drumming of rain against the window pane. I started my new job at the Seattle office a week later. The people were friendly, welcoming, but I was guarded, hesitant to share anything about my personal life. I told them I had recently moved from out of state, looking for a change of scenery. That was all. Work was a distraction, a way to occupy my mind and earn a paycheck. I threw myself into my projects, volunteering for extra assignments, staying late at the office, anything to avoid going home to my empty apartment, to avoid confronting the emotions that were simmering beneath the surface. But the emotions wouldn't stay buried. They surfaced in my dreams, replaying the betrayal over and over again. They manifested in sudden fits of rage, in tearful breakdowns in the shower. They were always there, lurking in the shadows. I started exploring the city, wandering through Pike Place Market, hiking in Discovery Park, kayaking on Puget Sound. The natural beauty of the Pacific Northwest was breathtaking, a stark contrast to the ugliness I had experienced back home. But even amidst the towering trees and sparkling water, I couldn't shake the feeling of being lost, adrift. I tried dating. I set up a profile on a dating app, swiped left and right, went on a few awkward coffee dates. But I couldn't connect with anyone. The trust was gone, shattered into a million pieces. Every man I met seemed to be hiding something, to be capable of betrayal. One night, after a particularly disastrous date, I found myself sitting alone at a bar, nursing a glass of wine. I was scrolling through Instagram when I saw a photo of Liam and Clara posing with their newborn daughter. They looked happy, radiant, like the perfect little family. A wave of nausea washed over me. I slammed my phone down on the bar and burst into tears. A few weeks later, a letter arrived at my apartment. It was postmarked from my hometown, with a return address I didn't recognize. I hesitated before opening it, a sense of foreboding washing over me. Inside, there was a handwritten note and a small wrapped package. The note was from my aunt, Mom's sister. She wrote that she was thinking of me, that she was sorry for what had happened, that she wanted me to know I wasn't alone. "Your mother is beside herself with grief," she wrote. "She misses you terribly, but she's too stubborn to admit it. She's convinced that you'll come to your senses and return home." I scoffed. My senses were just fine. It was my family who was delusional. The package contained a framed photograph of me and Clara as children. We were standing side by side, smiling, holding hands. It was a picture from a time before the rivalry, before the betrayal, before everything fell apart. I stared at the photograph for a long time, tears streaming down my face. I remembered the girl in the picture, the girl who loved her sister, who trusted her parents, who believed in happy endings. What happened to her? That night, I couldn't sleep. I tossed and turned in bed, the photograph burning a hole in my mind. Finally, I gave in and got up. I went to the kitchen, made a cup of tea, and sat down at the table. I picked up my phone and scrolled through my contacts until I found my mother's number. I hesitated for a long time, my finger hovering over the call button. What would I say? What could I possibly say that would bridge the gap between us? Finally, I took a deep breath and pressed the button. The phone rang a few times before she answered. Anya? She said, her voice trembling. Hi, Mom, I said, my own voice shaking. There was a long silence on the other end of the line. I got the letter, I said, finally breaking the silence. From Aunt Carol. Oh, she said. Well, she always was sentimental. Mom, I said, I don't know what to say. Say you're coming home, Anya, she said, her voice pleading. Say you're ready to forgive us, to put all this behind us. I can't do that, Mom, I said. Not yet. Maybe not ever. But Anya, I'm not ready, I interrupted. I need time. I need space. I need to figure out who I am without all of you. But the baby, Anya, she said. Your niece. Don't you want to be a part of her life? I don't know, Mom, I said, my voice barely a whisper. I honestly don't know. Please, Anya, she begged. Just think about it. Think about your family. I will, Mom, I said. I promise. But right now, I need to go. I hung up the phone, my heart pounding in my chest. The phone call with my mother didn't magically erase the pain, but it did shift something inside me. It was like a tiny crack had formed in the wall of anger and resentment, allowing a sliver of light to shine through. I started therapy again, this time with a new therapist, a woman named Sarah who specialized in family trauma. Sarah helped me unpack the years of emotional baggage I had been carrying, to understand the dynamics that had shaped my relationship with my family. It was a long and painful process, but it was also incredibly liberating. I started to see my parents, not as villains, but as flawed human beings who had made mistakes. I started to understand Clara, not as a rival, but as a wounded soul who was desperately seeking validation. And I started to see myself, not as the other daughter, but as a strong, resilient woman who deserved to be loved and respected. I didn't magically forgive my family, but I did begin to let go of the anger. I started to focus on building my own life, on creating a future that was free from the patterns of the past. I reconnected with some old friends, made new ones at work, and started exploring my passions. I took a pottery class, joined a hiking group, and volunteered at a local animal shelter. Slowly but surely, I started to heal. The rain in Seattle didn't disappear, but it didn't seem so oppressive anymore. It was just a part of the landscape, a reminder that even in the darkest of times, there is beauty to be found. A year passed. The legal case against Clara was eventually dropped due to lack of evidence. I didn't care. I had moved on. I was thriving in Seattle, excelling at my job, and building a life I loved. I still thought about my family, but the pain was less intense, the memories less raw. One day, I received a letter from my mother. She wrote that Clara was struggling, that being a single mother was harder than she had imagined. She wrote that Liam had left, that he had abandoned Clara and their daughter, just as he had abandoned me. Anya, she wrote, I know I've made mistakes. We both have, but Clara needs you. Your niece needs you. Please come home, just for a visit. I stared at the letter, my heart pounding in my chest. The old patterns were still there, the familiar pull to rescue and to fix. But this time, I knew I had a choice. I thought long and hard about what to do. I talked to Sarah, my therapist. I talked to my friends. And finally, I made a decision. I wasn't going home. Not yet. Maybe someday, in the distant future, I would be ready to face my family again, to attempt to build a new relationship. But right now, I needed to prioritize my own well-being, to protect the fragile peace I had found. I wrote a letter to my mother, explaining my decision. I told her that I loved her, that I hoped we could one day find a way to heal. But I also told her that I needed to protect myself. to continue on my own path. I sealed the letter, addressed it, and dropped it in the mailbox. As I walked away, I felt a sense of closure, a sense of freedom. The rain was falling softly, washing away the last vestiges of the past. I took a deep breath and kept walking, towards the future, towards the light. Years have passed. I'm still in Seattle. I am thriving at work, and I have a family of friends who love me. I've even met someone, David. He's kind, funny, and sees me for who I am, flaws and all. We're taking it slow, building trust, but I feel hopeful, optimistic about the future. I haven't spoken to my family in a long time. I know they're still out there living their lives, dealing with the consequences of their choices. Sometimes I think about my niece. I wonder what she's like, if she knows about me. I wonder if she'll ever understand what happened between our families. Maybe someday I'll reach out. Maybe someday I'll be ready to meet her. But for now, I'm content. I'm at peace. I'm free. The rain still falls in Seattle, but it doesn't bother me anymore. It's just a part of the rhythm of life. A reminder that even in the darkest of times, there is always hope, always the possibility of renewal. I am Anya, and I have survived. I have healed, and I am finally, truly free.